All righty, Jackie, thank you. Good evening, everyone, and so happy to have you here for our Philly Fundamentals. Philly is a sports town session. As Jackie mentioned, I am a broadcaster and analyst with several networks, so NBC Sports, ESPN, FIFA. I've been working with ahead of the World Cup, former soccer player, as a three-time All-American and Hall of Famer, as well as a professional speaker. So I am thrilled to be moderating tonight's conversation about the growth here in Philly, especially as a former athlete myself, and know that the city's always been one of the most passionate sports towns across the country. And right now, we're really seeing something special happening in our backyard. So whether it's earlier this year with the record-breaking 21,490 fans at Xfinity
Yes.
Mobile Arena for Unrivaled, the sold out events, records broken, or the exciting announcement around a WNBA team finally coming to Philly. So, with one of our two panelists here, I'm going to jump in. Jen Leary, give you a chance to share a little bit about yourself as one of the people that are actively working in the community behind the scenes who are helping to make these moments continue in our city. So, Jen, share a little bit
Yeah.
about yourself and the exciting news that you have happening right now as well.
Yes. So, hello everyone. I'm Jen Leary. I started Watch Party PHL 2 years ago. It was in March for the NCAA Women's Championship game, South Carolina, Philly's own Dawn Staley versus Caitlin Clark in Iowa. And that's really when Watch Party PHL took off. What started out as a once a month WNBA watch party just snowballed into what it is today, which is like 3 to 5 watch parties a month for every women's sports that you could imagine. Like we went right from the NCAA Women's Championship game to the WNBA to the Olympics to the PWHL to rugby to Paralympics to soccer to, any women's sport that you could think of, we were getting asked to throw watch parties for. And so and there's no demand, like there's no lack of demand for women's sports, and there's no lack of women's sports to watch these days. And so it's been a good run for the last 2 years, which is why we're opening the Stoop Pigeon by Watch Party, which Renee just talked about there. We're going to be opening in June at Broad and Pine, and we're going to just carry on our mission of bringing together a community of women's sports fans in Philly and the Philly area, and also showing, the WNBA and Unrivaled that they made a good decision coming here, but then showing the other women's sports leagues that Philly is a women's sports town and that there is hard concrete data like the Unrivaled game breaking records to prove that they should bring their teams here as well.
Absolutely. Congrats on the exciting news
Thank
coming
you.
June. That'll be here before we know it. I do
Yep.
want to make a quick disclaimer for anybody as you see me sipping tea. I do have a cold, so bear with me here. I'm on the recovery. I'm on the mend though. But I am curious, Jen, because right now is such a tipping point for women's sports in general, especially in Philly. What excites
Yes.
you most about the moment right now based on the incredible work that you're doing?
Well, I think we have a huge opportunity here, right? With the WNBA coming here in 2030, and shout out to Alex, who hopefully will get on this call soon, and Wanda and Starla and Ashley and and Kiasha, all the Philadelphia Sisters team for getting that taken care of here for us. Um, you know, we have something to look forward to, right? But there's still a lot of work to do, and we acknowledge that there's still a lot of work to do. And with the Philadelphia Sisters and the Stoop Pigeon, we're working on ways to keep the momentum going here, like bringing Unrivaled, but also knowing that we still have to continue to do the work to prove to them that they made the right decision. So even when they come here in 2030, the work is not done. So much is going to go into these next 4 or 5 years, and after that as well, with you know, buying tickets to the games, selling out games, buying the merch, continuing to watch the games and showing up for women's sports events in this city, continuing to show the city and everyone else that this is a place that can handle and can grow a women's sports team. And so, and it's not just us and the Philadelphia Sisters doing that. Everyone in the community, everyone in the city, everyone listening has a role to play in that as well.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I mean, through the work you're doing alone with the Stoop Pigeon, with everything around encouraging people to watch and support women's sports, you're really creating that sports culture conversation consistently. And as you mentioned, there are many of us that are out here around Philly
Yes.
that are doing that. And we've been seeing, I mean, we already know Philly sports fans how passionate we are, but also we're seeing how well, in terms of the sports history, the talents that's born
Yes.
and raised in Philly, the community, the youth sports pipelines, media coverage, fan culture, so many other components that are very uniquely positioned to help support women's sports. So we do have,
Yes.
I want to give a shout out to those that sent in questions beforehand because I'm actually incorporating your questions with some of my questions as well. And one of my questions that actually I know was also previously submitted questions as well is when you think about what's realistically next for Philly in terms of women's sports, what do you foresee as the next sports team that could possibly land in Philly? What I know the PWHL was brought up as a team that somebody specifically asked about, but realistically, looking at the ecosystem, how do you think this creates that ripple effect for
Right.
more teams to be introduced to Philly across the incredible amount of emerging professional women's sports leagues?
Right. So this is a question Alex can talk more to if she jumps on, but I will say from being around her and listening to the sisters answer this question, uh, I'll do my best to answer. So I think, just my opinion, I think we'll get more teams like we got Unrivaled here doing visits before I think we'll get another professional team of our own. Like I think there's a lot of that type of Unrivaled type stuff coming in down the pipeline sooner than later. Um, I know like there's a lot of people in the city advocating and working very hard behind the scenes to get us an NWSL team. Um, a lot of that though has the issues around that are land and stadiums. Just like it was for the WNBA, there's always going to be issues about land and stadium, right? Like the women should have and they deserve their own practice facilities, their own stadium, um, and we want them in Philly. There's just not a lot of room for that, right? Like, so I know that there are many, 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 many discussions that I am not privy to happening around all of that. Um, so those are there's a lot of logistics, and Alex can tell you there's a lot of years of discussion and logistics that go into bringing a professional team here. Like the Philadelphia Sisters have been working on getting a WNBA team here for like 6 or 7 years. So like I believe we will down the line have more. I truly believe, and Alex and her team truly believes it. And when they set their mind to something, they do it. So I truly believe we will get another professional team, but I do think we'll get a lot more of those visiting teams first. Um, and I think they're going to come way before the WNBA team gets here, which leads back to that. What are you excited about? That's what I'm excited about.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to pop on because we had Alex for a
I
second on the
saw, and then
phone.
she,
Yes.
So if I see her come back in, I'm going to allow her to talk so that way she can join you both.
okay.
Beautiful, beautiful. And yes, I'm happy that we're getting Alex back in. I know I saw in the chat about my voice being fake. I actually think it's more about me losing it more than anything. I didn't have a voice yesterday, so we're making progress. I did turn my mic up, so hopefully that helps. But something, Jen, that I know you can speak to in terms of what people can do to get involved. That's always a
Yes.
question. And I know we had some previously submitted questions around it too. How
Yep.
can someone new get connected to the community of supporting women's sports, but then
Yep.
also what are ways that people can make an impact to help support and encourage, whether it's those one-off much like Unrivaled, or to show that the city is welcome and ready for more teams?
Right. So I mean, it goes from something simple like, well, supporting and getting involved, I think could be two different answers. So let me go with getting involved first. So, and we get that question a lot at the Stoop Pigeon. So, you can tangibly get involved by volunteering with us or working at the watch parties or eventually working at the Stoop Pigeon, right? Or helping the Philadelphia Sisters. I know there's a lot of, again, behind the scenes stuff that's happening that we all need help with. But also, there's a ton of women's sports groups in the city, in the area. So there's like Black Women Love Football. There's the Black Women's Basketball Museum, PYB, Snyder Hockey, like Kensington Soccer. There are a ton of leagues, rec leagues, women's sports organizations, women's sports communities in Philly and mostly and on social media who are all doing their part in one way or another to support women's sports and to cultivate the women's sports community here in Philadelphia. And so it is a matter of finding what you're interested in, whether it's a specific sport. Like for instance, the Philadelphia Falcons are in charge of Pride House Philadelphia, which is FIFA's arm. So in every city that FIFA is coming to this summer, they have a Pride arm. So Pride House PHL is being run by the Philadelphia Falcons, which is a huge soccer organization here in Philly. Um, and FIFA reached out to them to throw events and to help bring engagement to sports in the city. Now, while not specifically women's sports, they reached out to us and we're working on doing a sports panel, and a lot of the folks on that sports panel are women. And so there are ways to get involved in the community and in women's sports, even if it's not specifically women's sports. And I know, like, if you want like detailed, like I want to know how specifically get involved right this second, that's not a great answer, but I can't like if you want a more specific answer about like who can I talk to or like I can happy to provide that to you. DM me on Instagram. I answer all my DMs and happy to help anyone who's looking for more tangible ways. But there's so many organizations out there now on the ground doing great things for women's sports and for youth sports in this city, and they always are looking for help.
I think that's a great answer. There's a lot of options to your point, and I know a question that has come up that I'm also curious about is also the impact and involvement with the youth and the community. And I'll take it one step further because Jen, as you mentioned, there are always ways popping up, and there are always so many different components people can get involved with, whether
Yep,
volunteering or more hands-on. And
yep,
you're someone that's a prime example that got very hands-on in involvement with the Stoop Pigeon. So,
right,
and someone that created a space. People always ask, how can I get involved? There's a wide range and they can also create that space. What are some of
correct.
those behind the scenes conversations you see happening to make sure there is the trickle down effect to help the youth, to get others to get involved, to get others to create in these
Yep.
spaces as well?
Yeah, and I think a lot of that, well, it starts from the top up, but also boots on the ground, right? And so I know, again, I'll speak for the Philadelphia Sisters because Alex isn't on right now, but when they were working with Unrivaled and with the city and with the Sixers and everyone to get Unrivaled here, they were adamant that they were adamant that there needed to be a community day for kids in the city to experience Unrivaled. And so there was a community day with Unrivaled at PYB, Philadelphia Youth Basketball, and the players from Unrivaled and 300 kids from around the city, mostly girls, got to learn from legends, learn from the best in the world. They got one-on-one with the players from Unrivaled, teaching them how to dribble and shoot and all, and they did a Q&A afterwards. And so that was really important to the Philadelphia Sisters. They also were able to offer tickets to a bunch of the teams in the community so that they could come to the Unrivaled game. So it's stuff like that. When every time we're planning, and we do this with the Stoop Pigeon too. So like the whole reason that the Stoop Pigeon is going to be not a bar, but like we're going to serve alcohol, but it's not a bar. It's a family friendly event for so that kids can come and watch women's sports because you have to include kids early. You got to get them interested early. You have to give them a space so that they can see people like them playing these sports. And so being very intentional about including kids and youth teams in everything that we do, everything that the sisters do. It's always in the front of our heads. But on the flip side of that, there are so many amazing people in this city working in youth sports right now. Like I just had a phone call the other day with a coach from City Sports at C.I.T.Y Sport, which is a youth basketball organization in the city. And they focus a lot on girls in basketball and just so their program's amazing. I highly recommend looking them up, but there's so many places like that. Snyder and again, Kensington Soccer is one of the amazing ones. Philadelphia. There's so many uh, amazing youth sports organizations in our city. So, um, yeah, there's no lacking of youth sports and lifting them up in this city.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because it emphasizes that in order for Philly to continue to have teams, whether it's, an actual Philly women's sports team in another league, volleyball, lacrosse,
Yep,
baseball, hockey, whatever, whichever one it may be, or even those one-off events like Unrivaled and others that should be coming as well to the city,
yep,
the community aspect is just as important. Everybody knows, or we don't know all the details, but we all have an idea that infrastructure in terms of an arena, practice facilities, those components on the business side are important as well. But as you're continuing to harp on, for those that are watching and interested, the community does have a role. There is
yeah.
value. Your voice does matter in that sense. You can be someone actively showing why Philly has the community to be able to support a professional team. So when you look at what's being done, Jen, what do you think is next in terms of what else you would love to see in Philadelphia's women's sports landscape to continue to welcome these opportunities? Are there any gaps? Are there any areas? Because maybe there's something that someone out there might have an interest in that they can fill or help provide. Is there anything you feel like is truly on the community side, on the well, I guess more on the community side that still needs to happen to continue to grow the women's sports landscape in the city?
On the community side, it's always going to be showing up, right? There's power in numbers. So, um, but I also, on the business side, I think is more important. There has to be a place for them to show up, right? Like we're opening the Stoop Pigeon, but for instance, we're working right now on our March Madness schedule for the women's teams, and we've reached out to a ton of bar and restaurants in the area asking them if they'll show the women's sports with the sound on. Because, like, you're going to show the men's, you have to show the women's. Like, there has to be equal representation. And we're
Yeah.
having a really hard time, to my dismay, finding people who will show it with the sound on. And so I think a lot of this responsibility falls on the businesses in this city to understand where we're at now. Like, it's not okay to show the men's with the sound on and not the women's. We're not there anymore. And if we want the community to show up, they have to have a place to show up. Like we're one place. There's and Marsha's as well, but they're not open during the day. So like for all these other places who are going to be open during the day showing the men's on, these they have to get it together. They have to show the women's with the sound on as well because that's what's missing in the city. Still, 2 years later, like after all the advocacy and all the work everyone's been doing and the rallying cry of Philly as a women's sports town, still we're having a lot of trouble finding locations who will turn the sound on for us. And it's not okay.
Yeah, that is wild. There's the good thing that you mentioned about that is the reminder there still is more work to be done. I
Yes,
know
for
so
sure.
many people have been advocating and wanting and asking about a WNBA team coming to Philly. great, we have one coming to Philly in the upcoming years, but that's not enough. There are so many
Right.
other leagues that there can be and should be more sports that are played right in our backyard professionally. And so
Yes.
I do think that's a great point of even something as that might be seen as simple, but that's a massive deal. That now when people go to that restaurant, go to that bar, they can hear the game. So now you can hear who are they talking about? Which player is that?
Yeah.
What are the stats around them watching a game? And as a broadcaster, I can tell you great if you have us muted, you still are watching at least, but hearing us and hearing the stats and the storylines and
Yep.
what coach said about this player or what the player said previously in a press conference or something like that gives you the extra storylines to connect the audience with who that player, who
Yes.
that team, who that coach is. So those details do matter because broadcasters like myself
Yes.
work very hard to incorporate those into the contest, into the game,
Yep.
and we want people to hear them.
Right.
Um,
Now,
I
I
do want
will
to
say,
encourage.
oh,
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry,
Nope, go
one more
ahead.
thing. As far as other ways the community can support, we have amazing women's teams right here in Philly in the college scene. So the Big Six with Penn and Drexel and Temple and Villanova and LaSalle, even like in New Jersey with Rutgers, like there are teams that you can support here, or women's teams that you can support here and support regularly. I was at a Temple basketball game a couple of weeks ago, and it was amazing. And I, could kick myself for not going sooner or not going more regularly, and I will be doing that now. But like, that's a great way to support, even when we don't have a professional team here yet, because a lot of the people you're going to see playing will eventually go pro and you'll have first look at them.
That's a great point. And I can say that as someone that does a lot of the Philly sports college games for ESPN, like I did a St. Joe's Penn game and
Yep.
both teams are rocking the Philly is a women's sports
Yep.
town. And I've seen a number of times where not only are the players on the court getting involved with helping to spread the message, but you see the AAU teams and youth
Yep.
teams and, different groups that are coming out to watch. So that's a very valid point that there are still and already sports and games
Yes.
going on that you can support. And I know we have some in the chat as well. I want to encourage you guys, if you have questions, ask them, drop them in the chat. You can share your name, you can drop them anonymously. I will try to incorporate them into our conversation this evening as well. And Rita, thank you for the shout out, just sharing no question, just a comment about you're all doing a great job. Girl power, go Philly. I love, love, love that. But I do see a good question in there that actually I think ties in nicely with this conversation as you touch on the fact that we have had events happening in our backyard. And I'll get to the children question later too. I do see it. But we have had some special one-off events. Gotham FC versus Washington Spirit
Yes.
at the Philadelphia Union Stadium in Chester was an event that happened. And when you have those opportunities to have the U.S. Women's National Team or an NWSL game or whichever event it is that's happening in Philly, how can the marketing be increased? Because I know the person in chat is feeling like it wasn't clearly marketed, and I know there's some bigger issues about that in my opinion too, in terms of maybe like media coverage and things. But what do you
Yep.
see that people can get involved with helping to do to help market that or just ways they can make sure they're strongly attended and strongly shown off?
Yeah. Strongly attending is key, right? Um, yeah, because there weren't a lot of people at that Gotham Spirit game in at the Union Stadium. It was really pretty sad, actually. And I do think, and I did hear that too, that it wasn't marketed well. Um, I, I guess it goes back to we have to be the advocates for women's sports, right? Even though it's Gotham in spirit and you would think they have their own marketing team, the union should be pushing it out, whatever. We have to be the ones who push it out. If we're really excited about women's sports coming here, then we need to help that movement. And yes, it's kind of like voting, right? Like one person you think one person can't make a difference, but one person absolutely can make a difference. And if every person is that one person, then it's dozens and dozens and hundreds of people, right? And so sharing the information you see on Instagram, forwarding if you get those newsletters from Gotham or the Union about what's coming up and you see a women's sports event, sharing that newsletter with your contacts. getting, if you're into social media, getting on social media, start talking about the games, start getting people hype about it. Like anybody can be a sports influencer these days, right? If you know something that's going on and you think it's interesting, start talking about it. And then show up. That's the most important part. Like people have to show up to these games. Like so there was kind of the two games. It was the Gotham and Spirit, which was not greatly attended, but then the U.S. women's team game was, I think, shortly after that, which was very well attended. A lot, but there was a lot more hype around that game. And so, while again, we're not in charge of promoting these events. We kind of do have to be the promoters of women's sports, especially when it's an event in our city or next to our city, right? And I would continue to, yeah, push it out and use, we all have networks, use your networks.
Yeah, and I think it's a great reminder of just why these games even happen. And I can say, as someone that actively has covered some of I'll take the international games, for example. Let's look at the NFL, and I'm not, just using this as comparison. The NFL has continued to expand their international slate of games. And a big reason why Roger Goodell and the NFL have wanted to do more of that is to see which countries and which other parts around the world have an appetite for the NFL. Where
Yes.
are people, where are the big fan bases that maybe we're missing? Where are those communities that we can have more of a presence in? When they are at those games, they have the teams, much like Unrivaled did here in Philly, they have the teams immersed in the community doing some different, events or clinics or whatever it may be. So anytime there is an event in Philly, honestly, whether it's the national teams or an individual league, it's their way of testing the waters
Yes.
essentially to see, does Philly really have the fan base? Now, the tricky part we know is exactly as you mentioned, Jen. It's not a Philly based marketing group. It's
Right.
Gotham, it's Washington Spirit, and they're really just marketing it. We have another game. I know Carly Lloyd was
Right.
involved. They try to bring in some other
Yeah.
factors, but it's truly up to people in Philly to
Right.
also show,
Yep.
this is why you guys should have more games here. We do want to see you play.
Yep.
We do want to have a team. So it's actually a test in that sense.
And
And we didn't do
yeah,
great with it with
no,
Gotham and
but
Spirit,
I think
but
that's what Unrivaled did really well, right?
yeah,
Once they came in, they they did the announcement at Love Park, and
love,
then
yes.
they left the marketing it to people in the so to us and the sisters, so people in this to the sports influencers in the city. They left that to the people on the ground to do that because who knows this area and the women's sports fans better than the people in this city? And so I think maybe it's less about what we can do, but more about what other leagues can learn about how we did it right. Without being too cocky about it. But like, I think we all did a really great job at getting Unrivaled sold out, and it's something that other teams, other leagues can look at when they want to try to bring in their teams. Again, though, too, like the union isn't in Philadelphia. I think that played a huge part in it. And I also think it was like a really cold late night. I think that
Yeah, I
time
feel like it
has
was a terrible night. The scheduling
terrible
was.
night. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that has a lot to do with it too. So when you're bringing the teams, they should really focus more about when they're bringing the teams here, what time of day, um, stuff like that. I mean, that affects our watch parties too. It's most certainly going to affect a live event that's not in this city.
Yes, especially I feel like it was like was it a weeknight or something
Yeah,
else
I
was
think it was a
wonky about it that
weeknight
wasn't
and it was
great. Yeah,
cold.
it's like
Yeah.
a exactly. So there are other factors, and I do think that when
Correct.
you look at Unrivaled rolling out like Natasha Cloud and they had Philadelphia Eagles and they had a lot of,
Yes.
as you mentioned, Philadelphia media,
Yep.
content creators, organizations that were in attendance to really make this in itself. The announcement was an event.
Yes.
I'm still bummed I missed it. So, just creating the hype in a way that makes people knowledgeable about what's going on. has people looking forward to it, that is absolutely important as well. So I know there are now more questions flowing in. Keep them coming because Jen, these are great questions. I know you can touch on as well. Um, and the big key that we keep talking about is the reality of how the city has been finding ways to connect with the audience, build the fandom, build the excitement. And it's not just the teams that are growing, but the entire community around women's sports that's growing as well. And I do want to get to I think it's a two-part question I can kind of loop together nicely because Bree F is in the chat asking about the Stoop Pigeon, as you've mentioned, Jen, being family oriented to allow
Hmm.
for young fans to invest in these sports and women athletes at a young age. And Bree's saying how she's curious if you have any other strategies to turn casual fans into more loyal supporters. But I want to package that with a previous question from an anonymous person of how do you find that balance of including children without fully catering to that demographic? Because at times sports do tend to maybe focus on catering just too much to kids and families and maybe not to that 20 to 35 demographic is what they
Right.
mentioned. So I feel like those questions go nicely together of how you turn casual fans into true fans and then catering to all the different demographics as
Right.
well.
So I mean, great question. And I mean, disclaimer, I'm not a kid person at all. Um,
At least you're
so I,
honest.
I mean, I'm not, but I do truly believe that we have to provide a space that is family friendly because and we do this with our watch parties, so we know it works, right? As part of like a checklist of things we need when we're looking at a space for our watch parties, one of them has to be, is it family friendly? And so we know there are families out there who watch women's sports and with their kids and they bring their kids to our watch parties. Um, there has been there's been no problems around it. We get such a diverse group of people who come to our watch parties from little kids to very, very old people, and everyone in between. Because, like the t-shirt says, everyone watches women's sports, right? So, I think we just do what we've been doing and focus on being family friendly, but not focusing on catering to children, if that makes sense. Um, the space um, will be comfortable enough for families, but also we are going to be a space where you can drink as well. And so, um, I'm sure it'll be a fine balance, and I'm sure we'll get some stuff wrong along the way, but we really are determined to make this a space where everyone is welcome and you see someone that looks like you when you walk in the door. And I think my best um, example of this is Dock Street, right? So, Dock Street on Washington Avenue, they're very much kind of how we want to be. So they have coffee now during the day, and they allow, families and kids in. I think they let kids come in until like 7 or 8 at night, and then after that, it's strictly bar. Now, not, and it works for them, and I've been there many, many, many times, and it works. Like there's people drinking, there's people out with their friends having a good time, there's families there. Um, so we're going to take a little bit of that. We're going to take a little bit of what we've learned from other locations that we've been to that allow kids, and we'll make it work. I'm not concerned.
Yeah, and I think the reality is people understand if you do attract and cater to, kids wanting to be at an event, that means their parents are bringing them there. That means maybe
Yes.
grandparents. I'm a proud auntie. Aunties and uncles might be there. Like if you
Yep.
can create a space that's welcoming for kids, whether it's the games around it,
Yep.
activations around it, mascots walking around,
Yep.
cotton candy and snacks, like whatever it may be, you're going to get the parents. And then also for anybody that's a parent here, you also recognize like your kids tend to get you to want to spend money a little bit more too. So now, mom, dad, can I get that shirt? Can I have that pizza? Can I have that? Like all of a
Right.
sudden everybody's hungry. Everybody wants to drink everything. They want to buy everything. So it is a very big marketing component as well because people understand if they want to get the adults it helps if the parents to come. It helps if you
Right.
have something for their kids to do too, so they
Right.
don't have to look for a babysitter or anything like
Right.
that. Um,
I,
Go ahead.
the second part of that question, how to get casual fans to become more
Yes.
invested. I think that goes to what you were saying about listening to the broadcasters and listening to the stories, and which is why we're so adamant about volume being on all the time for the games, but also when you're in Philly rides for Philly, right? So like when you're invested in the Philly players and the athletes on the screen, you're more inclined to be, a bigger fan. And so what we're doing in the Stoop Pigeon is, we're going to be displaying like a mural for all the women's sports history in Philadelphia. We're going to have artifacts of women from Philadelphia, like a Kalia Copper signed basketball, a Natasha Cloud t-shirt, like Dawn Staley, an old Rage poster that she signed. So when you learn about the women in this city who have moved women's sports forward, you're more bought in. And then, you know, you start watching them, you become more of a fan. And so that's part of the way we're going to try to do this. We want to teach people about the women who led the way, but also the people who are playing right now.
Yeah, and I think that storytelling is huge. I always also encourage people to talk about women's sports the same way you may talk about male sports.
Right.
Like I love getting into family conversations or with my friends, debating players or March Madness is
Yep.
coming up and we're giving our predictions, just when you have a chance to fully watch and talk about it and immerse yourself in it. And to your point, what you see around you, what you hear around you does matter. That's why places
Yep.
like the Stoop Pigeon and places that do a good job of creating a space where you can learn about women's sports. Because I know for a fact, I remember very vividly growing up, going to whichever restaurant as a kid, and I would see the jerseys hanging around and helmets or basketballs or gloves or whatever little sports
Yep.
memorabilia. And it was just a very small way that you were already starting to learn as a kid, but even for adults, that's what we're talking about. That's what we're seeing, and you
Yep.
have to see it to believe it. So starting just to be more comfortable talking about it, seeing it, watching it, tuning in. And so I know I definitely want to give you guys, if you have any other questions, please get them in because we are nearing the hour, and I have a couple more in here that I absolutely want to ask as well. Two questions I think go perfectly together. One person anonymously is asking about how Philly's going to capitalize on the LA Olympics. 2028 will be here before we know it.
Oh
And then
God.
another person's also asking about a way for Philly to open up for women's sports events to those international teams. So beyond a massive event like the LA Olympics, how Philly can open up to international teams that aren't American or in United States leagues
Yep.
that do have those massive events. I know we're seeing it in soccer on the men's side. Like, how do we get more of those on the women's side as well?
Right. So I guess how do we get them here or how do we get
How do we
people
capitalize off
involved?
of them? And then how do we, yes, I would take it more because we're not on the side of like
Right.
the business planning of getting the actual matches here, but how to capitalize on them and how to open up for them to, I guess, show that this is a city that they want to play in.
Right. Um, well, I think again, let's go back to what we've been saying all the time, which is showing up, right? So, um, I'm pretty sure, like, so the women's PGA tour is coming here in the summer, right? I think the WTA might be coming here at some point. So, again, showing up to women's sports events will show other women's sports programs that they should come here. Um, in this, so at the Stoop Pigeon, the reason we're opening at 7 in the morning is so that we can air international women's sports games. We're a big international women's soccer family in my household, and so watching women's sports on, like watching the WSL, the Women's Super League over in England is a big deal to us, and so we'll be showing that on our screens. Um, but like, so capitalizing on the Olympics is going to be the same thing. It's going to be showing the Olympics on all the screens, right, with the sound on. But it's again can't just be the men's like competitions. It has to be the women's competition as well. I think a good test of like international um, fandom and international support will be FIFA when it comes here this summer. Um, I don't think that there's going to be any shortage of fans that will show up in the city for that. And so, um, if we get lucky enough to have the women come here next time around, we have to show up the same way. And we have to continue to, again, show up. I mean, this is it. This is how you capitalize it on it until we actually have something tangible to show up to that is women's sports specific, like Unrivaled. That's the model now. That's what we have to continue to do to get other teams here, to get other leagues here, to get the Olympics to come here, to get the women's games to come here. They have to know that it's worth it. And so we just have to continue, all of us, to show them that it's worth it. And the way that we do that is by showing up, is by turning on your televisions and putting the women's games on. Even if you're not able to attend a game, put it on so they see that the ratings are high in this area. Like all the things, buy the merchandise, all the things.
That's a great point. And to be honest, there are like I know I've been working with FIFA around the Men's World Cup matches and creating content, helping host series. There are so many things that are being done. I know
Yes.
one series I was on was even focused on each host city and sharing the history, the culture, the music, the arts, and I was helping to tell the stories around Philly specifically. So for the Olympics or anytime, hopefully we get the Women's World Cup here as well. That is a
Yes.
chance that we're going to see more and more of that content storytelling around it. But
Yep.
it shouldn't just take a massive international event for that to happen. To your point, Jen, I
Right.
mean, we've had the Big Five has their tournament now. They've changed up the model that they have the tournament structure of pod play and then the
Yeah.
finals games at the Xfinity Arena, still Wells Fargo in my opinion. But then also they have, you know, the friendlies that we've talked about for the U.S. women's national team. If the NWSL comes to Philly at all, if we have anything else, pen relays, or
Yes.
on the golf circuit, maybe there's something coming to Philly as well. So there's a massive, massive opportunity for us as a city. We just have to capitalize on
Yep.
it. And the last question I want to ask as we wrap up, because
Okay.
another very exciting thing we're seeing beyond Philly, just in terms of women's sports, is the emergence and surge of so many professional women's leagues. And as someone that had an opportunity to play professionally and did not have that true space to be able to cultivate a professional career, I love that players now have the choice to be a full-time professional athlete.
Yes.
And it was asked about the rise of women's volleyball, whether on the college or professional level, but also we can expand that because professional baseball for women,
Yep.
softball, lacrosse, like the
Football is
bigger
happening. Yep.
football, flag football, tackle football, beyond just basketball and soccer, there are so many more opportunities. And what are your thoughts on how we can continue to bring that growth into Philly, in your opinion?
Yeah, so great question. Back in the day, I played for Women's Professional Football League, the like very first iteration of that. And it was rough, right? Like, I mean, we say professional, but like we had to pay for everything. We didn't get paid for it. Like, and
I
people
understand.
didn't really know about it. And there was no like, there was that was not a career. It was like something I did after work and at night and on the weekends, like right. So like I always say I was born in the wrong time, right? I really like to see where the professional leagues are at now compared to what it was back then. There's so many more options, and it's so exciting. Like we had Monet Davis on a panel last Wednesday, and she was on that panel, and then the next day she flew to LA to start training camp for the baseball season. Like to see where she was, just a girl from Philly playing baseball and softball to now playing professionally, and that league is getting a lot of hype. Like that's gonna be they're gonna be a good league. Um, and she's just was thrilled about like her dream is coming true. It's a really exciting time for women in sports and for professional leagues. Volleyball's another one. I played volleyball in high school. God, I wish I could have like gone on to like dream about being a professional women's volleyball player when I was young. It just wasn't a thing, and now it is, and that league's blowing up. Um, so, the things are looking up for women's sports, and now is the time. I think we're really at a point in history where more leagues like the PWHL, like look at the success that they've had, and um, I think they're just going to keep popping up, and they're keep going to keep growing and keep getting bigger. I think early on we saw a lot of leagues like start and fail and start and fail. I don't think we're there anymore. I think this is it. I think we're good, and now again, it's just a matter of supporting.
And that's a great key because I know we even had a question I was asked, if we don't have a team in Philly, who should we root for? And the reality is, a big reason why, okay, I know we're all very much Philly through and through, so we don't like to root for other cities. But in this case, for women's sports, in order for the WNBA to be able to expand to add cities like Philly and Cleveland, in order for any league to expand, they need the support. And they're seeing record setting numbers in a
Yes.
number of leagues, including the WNBA, which is even allowed to expand to Philly. So I know Alex would have been able to talk more about the business side of what that process
Yes.
looked like. But the reality is, the league as a whole has to be in a financial spot to be able to expand to other cities to even
Yep.
consider Philly. So in order to get considered for volleyball, for hockey, for whichever other sport you like, you need to support the league first and foremost,
Yes.
because that's what helps drive the revenue to be able to have expansion happen.
Yeah, great
So
point.
I am so thankful that we've had a chance to pause and talk through these moments that we're in, because Philly's always been such a passionate sports city. That's why we love it. And we are seeing a shift in how it's supported, how it's talked about, how it's invested, how it's celebrated. So hopefully in years to come, we're talking about more teams in the city, more
Yes.
events, more things around women's sports, because we really can make Philly the capital of women's sports. So Jen, thank you. I know, guys, we had
Thank
some
you.
tech issues. I have a cold, but we battled through, because you know what? As women, we are resilient.
That's right.
We are determined. And it's just another example of how we are always finding ways to continue to push the needle. And so I know Alex couldn't be here, but I'm glad that we at least had a chance to have this conversation with you around what's happening now, and more details I'm sure will be coming around the WNBA
Oh
specifically.
yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Jackie, I'll hand it back over to you.
Thank you. Thank you both. I was like, it just makes me so excited hearing about all the women's sports that are happening in Philly. Like growing up and watching women's soccer and seeing the rise of that and knowing the World Cup is coming to North America again for the women in 2031. I'm like, we have to be a host city. We have to
Yeah.
be. Um, Real quick, folks, before I let you all go for the evening, I appreciate you staying with us for some of these tech difficulties. I did want to say the way that you can support is you can buy the merch, as Jen already talked to. In case you haven't seen, I'm already wearing one of the merch, thanks to Jen, and I love it. I'm going to wear it all the time now. And Jen, I forgot to mention another Temple professor was wearing the same shirt today as I walked the halls, and I was like,
Oh,
kismet.
yay! Love it.
So grab the merch while you can. If you are dying to join us at a fam camp, we do have a few seats left for this Saturday, but registration does close tomorrow. And then our fam camp on April 11th is more than halfway sold out. So if you think you're coming in April, I would grab your ticket sooner rather than later. That one is going really quick. We will have a monthly happy hour this month at Pray Tell Wines. It is a women co-owned winery in Kensington, Fishtown area. Her partner is originally from South Philly. They had opened the winery out in Oregon, and then they decided to close up shop and bring it all back to Philly. So you'll get to find out more about their story. We'll have some raffle prizes, including some wine that we'll be raffling off. So come by, meet some other fams, and join us for that. And then one other thing, because I keep getting asked about volunteer opportunities. And next week or the week after, you're going to hear more about Join the Force, which is going to be our volunteer hub and platform where all of our partners are going to be posting opportunities for this summer. You'll get to pick and choose how you want to stay involved and continue to volunteer. For those of you that haven't done so already, more is coming. I know you all want to get out there, and we love that you love this city so much. But thank you again to Renee and Jen. Really appreciated the conversation. Loved hearing all things. Can't wait to see the space, Jen. I'm very excited to see that space,
Same.
and our monthly
Same.
happy hour can come. So
Same.
very excited. So thank you all and have a good night.
Bye. Thanks, Renee. You were
Bye.
great.